Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. I believe they were voted best in Marin, so that's pretty cool. Today's trivia theme is reliving the 1980s. All right. Now, we do have a special guest, Rich Juarez, who's a reverse mortgage consultant with Longbridge Financial. Over 20 years in the mortgage lending, licensed in California and Washington State, specializing in helping seniors unlock the equity in their homes to provide a more comfortable way of life. I like that. And I'm almost a senior. So tell me all about it.
well, thanks, Edward. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Okay, so first, tell us a little bit about you and Longbridge Financial.
Okay, so my journey, I started in the mortgage industry, actually in the traditional forward arena, and did that for 20 years, mainly as an independent broker. So I certainly understand that side of it. Never really worked for a direct lender, okay, and I really enjoyed that. Right, I had different lenders to choose from, and really, it was basically self-employed.
Okay. Yeah, that way you pick whatever's best for your client, whatever.
Yeah, you have the ability to shop around. Again, there's advantages and disadvantages. But if you're a broker, you're always going to say a broker's the best, and if you're a direct lender, you're going to say that's the best.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So recently, we had an office for about 15 years in Mill Valley, and then there was 4 of us. And then we kind of all went our separate ways. And I did some independent consulting for a while. And about a year and a half ago, I started talking to AAG, Tom Selleck.
Oh yeah. I was just saying, I knew I knew that name from somewhere. Yeah, Tom Selleck done it, sure.
And so I decided to go to work with them. The forward traditional mortgage is great. It's got its challenges. Everybody's a lot more rate sensitive, and a lot of shopping, and which they should do. I agree with that. But I was kind of looking at the demographics with all of us, and me, you, getting older. 10,000 people a day. 10,000 people a day turning 65, right? So I'm thinking that I think the opportunity is bright here. So anyway, AAG brought me aboard to do both forward and reverse mortgages.
Oh, okay.
Because they were trying to, what they would do, they had a big marketing team, and they'd get these, all these leads coming in, but a lot of reverse people, qualified for traditional, or it was better for them. So they figured they'd try to capture that as well. Right?
Sure.
So I was doing that and the reverse side of it. Anyway, a bit with them. They're a good company. I'm not going to badmouth anyone, but they went through some changes, right? And they ended up, the couple people that hired me ended up leaving and going to work with Longbridge Financial, who was a big presence, and they started in New Jersey in 2012.
Okay.
And they wanted to establish a presence on the West Coast. So the gal that hired me actually went there and asked me if I'd like to come over there and work with them. And looking at what they had to offer, I said, yeah, it seems like a great fit. And it's really been an excellent company to work for, to be honest with you. They get things done, and I can call managers, regionals, vice presidents, get them on the phone immediately. And they'll, they're in the business to get loans done. So it's been a really good fit.
Excellent. Okay. We've got another minute or so before we cut to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about different types of programs. Okay. Let's see, mainly the majority. What you had here a thing. Talk about reverse refinance, which is mainly what you're doing. That's right. The majority of the reverse mortgage. And actually, don't you have to have a special license to do reverse mortgages?
No.
No. Okay. Or maybe
no, you don't. You just need your regular broker's license, or your your NMLS license. But you definitely need to do some separate studies when you're with a reverse company. So as far as continuing education and such.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I knew that there was something to do different than what regular NMLS license do. Okay, good. Yes, because there's the reverse mortgage for purchase, which is interesting, but I can imagine a lot of people live in their house and then that's
Right.
where they want to do the reverse mortgages. And we've had people
Yeah.
come on to do who have been guests on the show who know about reverse mortgages, but it's interesting to hear your take. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I literally just had lunch with somebody who said that they had a friend who was going to do a reverse mortgage. The guy's 92 years old and he can only get like 65% of the money out at a 10% rate. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to ask Rich that question because to me that didn't sound normal. That for some reason that sounded a little bit higher. But anyway, we'll talk more about that when we come back. All right. Here is our first trivia question, which before I do that, I do want to make a quick mention here for the Mount View Hotel and Spa in Calistoga. They're offering 25% off all rooms this season. Check them out at mountviewhotel.com. All right, so now our first trivia question where the winner is going to, the first caller with correct answer is going to win the tanning certificate, which by the way is worth over $100. Reliving the 1980s is the theme. Here's our first trivia question. What 1980s slang term is a Valley Girl response to something you dislike? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Rich Juarez, our special guest who's going to talk about reverse mortgages. Before we do that, though, our first trivia question. What 1980s slang term is a Valley Girl response to something you dislike? Rich, do you know the answer to that?
I don't.
Okay. Gag me with a spoon, if you remember that from the 1980s.
No, I do.
Thought that was kind of funny. Okay. So Rich, from Longbridge Financial, let's talk about reverse mortgages here. So give us the types of programs and the differences.
Okay, so just real quickly, generally have to be 62 years old, just to give you an idea of the clientele. 62 years or older. Now, that's true for what's called a HECM or home equity conversion mortgage, which is basically governed by the FHA. That's basically, so they've set the limit at $1,089,300, right? So anything falls under that is FHA guidelines, right? And you have to be at least 62 years old. Now, if you go over that, some companies have their proprietary jumbo program, which we do. A lot of companies don't. They got out of that market. But if you're in California, you can be 55 years old.
Oh,
take advantage of that. So yeah, so it's pretty cool.
But I got to think about that because I know that just in general, the older you are, the more money you can take out percentage-wise because you're closer to death. Is really what it is. At age 55, what generally, how much, if your house is worth, let's say $1 million, what can you roughly take out?
That's a great question. So on the lower end, so if you look at we assign, it's basically a loan to value. We call it a principal limit factor. It's basically what percentage of value can you get, right? Yeah. Based on your age, interest rate, and the value of your home. And as you said correctly, the older you are, the more you get, the younger you are, the less you get, right? Longer term loan. So on the really low end, you're looking at, it could be low as 31, 32% of the value of your home, okay? Now, if you're up in your 90s, it can be up, depending, again, the FHA guideline, let's call it the non-jumbo, you'll get a little bit more percentage usually. So on the high end, about 66, 67%.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. So now I have a question for you that I've never asked any reverse mortgage specialist. And that is, if this isn't the case, I can imagine this coming. At this point, do they ask you to any health issues, or do they it's just based on age?
No, that's a great question. No, not at all.
And see, to me, that's the thing is, see, to me, if they don't have that, I would suspect somebody would come out with that because, someone let's say who's 80 years old, there's 80-year-olds who are going to die within 2 years because of various health issues. And there's other ones you figure, yeah, they might live to 100.
Right.
So like having to qualify. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so that's a great question. It's interesting because we assign basically a life expectancy. I would think it's similar to an actuary, you know, assigning like, hey, this person's going to live X. That's how we design our loan terms. And you're right. Some of them, like if, you know, we have clients that are 90 years old.
Yeah. And in this case, in the example I gave, it would be the exact opposite of like trying to get life insurance. Life insurance, you'd want to show, oh, I'm so healthy, I should get the lowest premium. In this case, you want to say, I'm practically on death's door, so give me 90% of the value of the house.
Well, so the thing is, I guess the theory is this: is, you know, if you're up in years, you know, your life expectancy isn't, you know, a great period of time, the less you're going to accumulate as far as, you know, dipping into that equity. So
exactly,
pretty safe bet, you know.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What generally, what are you seeing in today's market, interest rate wise, for the non-jumbo versus jumbo?
That's a great question. So I took some notes on that. Let's see. So there is a difference of, let's say in the non-jumbo, if you're doing, so there's a couple of things that you're going to look at. You've got a line of credit or you've got a fixed rate loan.
Yeah.
Okay. The lines of credit right now on the HECM or the FHA loans are running in the around 6 to 7%.
That's not that much different than
no, it's not,
than a regular loan. Okay.
As a matter of fact, no, that's what's nice about it. It's almost on par to a regular loan. But guess what? You don't have to make the payments on it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to qualify. So let's see. Yeah. So I actually did some notes here. So it looks like low 7s to low 8s on that line of credit.
Okay.
Fixed rate is around 6.8, which isn't bad at all either.
That's not too bad. You know, it's interesting, and I know years, and we've talked about this before on the show, that many years ago, reverse mortgages got a bad name because there were certain, either the banks themselves that were doing it or the brokers. Now it's just so much more regulation in a good way that it's very clean. And my mother-in-law, she was the perfect candidate for a reverse mortgage because she was up in years with very little to no income. And yet, you know, you've got real estate taxes to pay and insurance and all that. And so what is it called? Lisa, there we go. Elisa. Yeah. Where basically the bank effectively says, gee, you know, if you don't have much income, we've got to make sure that you absolutely pay your real estate taxes and insurance. Right. So they took out, I think, 8 years worth. So, right. You know, she basically could just live there, you know, just free, so to speak. Right. And then just make sure she pays her utilities, I guess, is really the only thing she has to worry about.
Right. Well, that's good that you brought that up, because there was one thing that sometimes people weren't clear on, is like, oh, you mean you have to pay your tax and insurance? Yes, that has to be paid, even though you don't have
that has nothing to do with the right. person or the bank.
But some people, you know, they think, oh, I don't have to pay anything. But yeah,
but if they thought more about it, though, then they kind of realize, well, what does the state of California or the county of Marin or wherever you're in, what does that have to do with your mortgage?
Right. And it's very, so at least it's a life expectancy set aside. Yeah. And it's very similar to basically if you were to have impound accounts on your regular mortgage, right?
Yeah.
You pay your tax and insurance, the bank pays the taxes and insurance. So, yeah.
You know, I can just imagine for the people who get the reverse mortgages that it's like, where do I write because I know you can, if you want to, pay your mortgage just so that doesn't, for your heirs, basically, the principal doesn't keep going up. But I can just imagine going, wait a minute, oh, I don't have to pay a mortgage? Oh my gosh, that's got to be pretty good. You know, it's funny, I almost accidentally paid my real estate taxes, forgetting the fact that when I pay my mortgage, this is the first time I've ever paid a mortgage where they included the real estate taxes. I got a really good interest rate back during COVID and all that. Right. And I almost paid them twice. And same thing with the insurance. I called my insurance person and I said, how much do I have to pay for insurance? He goes, no, it's already included in your mortgage. Tell you what, stay with us, Rich. We're going to go to our second commercial trivia question. Talking the 1980s here. What 1980s term means gotcha? This is all this like silly little questions here. All right. 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, along with my special guest, Rich Juarez from Longbridge Financial. Second trivia question. What 1980s term means gotcha? This is a hard one. You have to, once I tell you, you go, oh yeah, because you're talking, 30, 40 years ago. You remember that term?
It's not bingo, is it?
No, that would have been, that would have been another good one. No, it's psych. These are a little hard. I got to say, these are a lot. I don't know. It was just one of those things I just looked up and I go, I got to get some silly 1980s questions here. Okay, so let's get into the questions that you've given me ahead of time.
Okay.
What does it take to qualify? So you said you have to be at least 55 in some cases, or 62.
52. And then, so what we look at is basically your residual income. So what's great about a reverse mortgage, I mean, look at the majority of the people, and it's not everyone, but majority of people are fixed income, right?
Yeah.
So security, retirement, what have you. So you don't have, your traditional mortgage requirements where it's a 43% debt ratio or whatever. We have to have this massive amount of income. Really, it's just you cover your taxes and your insurance, because the reverse is going to pay off if you have a mortgage, it's going to pay that off, right? They don't go in a second position. That's another thing I want to clarify. Some people say, oh, can we do an equity line behind? No. Reverse mortgage always has to be in first position. And then, but you have to pay your taxes and insurance, and any bills you have, credit card, car payment, that's factored in. Also, they assign, I believe it's 14 cents a square foot for property maintenance, so whatever, it's minimal. But anyway, that's all calculated in, and that's really all you need to qualify. Now, there's a great tool that I use. Actually, I'll get into it later because it's kind of a fun fact about it. But really, to qualify, you just need to be able to cover your tax and insurance and whatever bills you have, and that's really it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And pros and cons of it, because there's got to be some cons to it.
Yeah, well, being biased, I am. The cons are, like you mentioned, maybe not so much as an older person, but say a younger person, and you do reverse mortgage. Especially on the HECM with FHA program, you have to pay a mortgage insurance premium. Okay, that's not a bank thing, that's an FHA thing, and it's 2% of the value of your claim. So if it's just one, it's upfront payment. So let's say it's your $1 million value, right? It's $20,000.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, and then it's 0.5% per year on the loan amount, which isn't much, but let's just say that $20,000, and you want to use it for a short-term, vehicle, then it probably doesn't make sense, right? Because it's not going to pay off for years to come. Also, the other con is today you got to look out for these. There's a lot of scam artists still, trying to sling these loans, and I mean, like I've come across, I have clients that are, people shop for reverses just like they do traditional.
Sure. And
this guy's telling me, oh, this broker's, he's charging me $50,000 to do a loan. I'm like, what are you talking about? 3 or 4 points and what have you. And I'm just like, that's just.
Well, that kind of happened with my mother-in-law. Let's put it this way, it almost happened, where my brother-in-law had called me and said, I'm wondering if reverse mortgage would work for mom. And I hadn't thought about it before, but I said, you know what? I go, yeah, in her case, it actually it totally makes sense. And so he says, well, yeah, this guy, I was talking to this guy, and it wasn't 50,000, but it was, he wanted to charge like a little bit too much up front, and the interest rate was going to be like an extra 2% more, and then a real reverse mortgage was going to be. And I thought, let me shop around for you a little bit, and so we got a little better for him.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really the things you got to look at, and of course, when you're so how they work too, just to give you an idea. So you want to really over-educate people, right? Because this is, first of all, as you mentioned, often doesn't have a great name. Reverse mortgages have the stigma. As a matter of fact, it's like almost when introducing yourself, you don't want to say, I do reverse mortgage. You're like, I'm a senior financial consultant or something, right?
Yeah.
But these, you look at people, maybe you look at your margins and what have you and all your expenses. And if, things need to be reasonable. And what you'll get, so for example, when we have a client, we give them, to start the process, we do a proposal, okay?
Right.
Proposal, and you have to give them 3 loan options, right? Couple lines of credit, maybe a fixed loan or whatever, but lays out all the expenses, gives them an amortization schedule. We assign a 4% appreciation rate on their real estate, which is very conservative, right? And it kind of maps out that says, okay, based on this, like if you take X out, right, by the end of this year, you'll have this versus your equity and what have you. So that, the proposal, and also you get a third party counseling. So, you get some really good information, and that's a requirement. These are all legal.
So let me ask you, do you, when you do a proposal, do you usually sit down with the, call it elderly couple and their kids?
It depends. It's up to them. Yeah. There are definitely family involved, and then also you run into, powers of attorney. Yeah. So, and there's, a couple powers of attorney, a power of attorney of the convenience, whereas your folks are just, can you help us out a little bit? But they're mentally competent, right?
Okay.
The other one, if you're mentally incompetent, that's quite involved.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, get the attorneys involved and everybody to sign off. We know exactly what's going on. We understand it. Tell you what, we're going to cut to our next trivia question, commercial break here. What 1980s term means really, really, really gross? Right? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate, again, which is worth over $100. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Rich Juarez of Longbridge Financial. Our third trivia question, what 1980s term means really, really, really gross? Do you remember that term?
I think I know the answer.
What's that?
Grody to the max.
Okay, Grody was what we were looking for, and Grody to the max, that's even better. And as we sometimes tell our guests, you got 1 out of 3 that'll get you in the Hall of Fame in baseball, right?
Oh, Hall of Shame.
Yeah, no, Hall of Shame. That's it. Exactly. Okay. So Rich is a reverse mortgage consultant who's been educating us about these reverse mortgages. What types of properties qualify?
So it's your regular, conventional, your single family home, townhouses, condos, manufactured homes.
Okay.
1 to 4 units. It's pretty standard.
No mobile homes, though, right?
No. And what you'll find, though, condos and townhomes have to be approved by the FHA. Okay, so that can be a process. We have a website that we look up to see if it's already approved. If not, we have a group that approves them for us. Involves questionnaires and how much of it is rental and what have you and such.
Gotcha.
It can be done pretty quickly, but I've seen them take some of these places just because of the non-cooperation by the HOA can take 8-9 months.
Yeah, and I got to think, I'm going to guess the reason is because if there's too many rentals, then that might affect the value, and the bank has to assume the borrower is going to live a fair amount of time. The increase in the loan is going to be such that they got to protect themselves, which is probably why they don't lend on mobile homes, because those will usually go up in value, whereas a manufactured home is still a regular home. You think that's the reason?
Yeah, and then, well, the manufactured homes too have to have certain, it has to be built after 76, I believe, has to be fixed to the land. You have to own the land, so.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's some nuances there.
All right, give us some fun and interesting facts about reverse mortgages.
So I'll take you back to the one we talked about. So it's qualifying. So let's say this, a client's on a fixed income of $1,000 a month, but her taxes and insurance and bills are $1,500, right? Okay. So we're going to go, hey, this is an issue. Yeah. Well, what we do, and this is pretty cool, we dissipate the funds. We have a function in our program where we say, okay, let's say she's allotted, $200,000 or whatever. we take that $200,000 and divide it by the term of the loan, right, and come out with a monthly figure, and we can use that to offset her their debt and actually overcome.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm thinking the first thing I think of is if her monthly bills are $1,500 and she has $1,000 a month income, how is she living anyway?
Right.
Your credit cards or
different end, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
But it's interesting because you don't. And here's the best part of that. All you're doing is saying, if we in fact did this, she would qualify. You don't have to lock those funds up and say, okay, this is what we're doing.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty cool. So it's like, yeah, hey, we got this, you know, we're good to go. So, and I would say a good 50-60% of my clients, we dissipate funds.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Another interesting thing is what's called, you can take a monthly draw or whatever. You can do what's called a 10-year and take, you know, X amount of income for life. Okay.
Okay.
Say it's 200 grand and she wants $1,000 a month. Say, I want that 10 year or whatever. Well, we have you know, our software says, okay, 10 years, she'd get this much for the rest of the loan term.
Yeah.
Well, let's say this person becomes superhuman and they outlive our term. Let's say they live another 10 years. They still get that same amount of money, even though the amount that we've allotted them has far surpassed by now. So that's a pretty interesting fact. So let's say it was 200 grand for 10 years, right? Let's say she lives years or whatever, it's 2 grand a month. She lives 11, 12, 13, 14 past us. She still gets 2 grand a month, even though it's more than we allotted her in the first place. Because it's for life. So pretty cool.
Well, while we have the last couple of minutes remaining here, I'd like to find out from you what your market outlook is for reverse mortgages. When we come back from break, we want to hear your advice about what to look out for when shopping for a loan. So let's first talk about the market outlook for reverse mortgages. Yeah.
So I was looking at a Wall Street Journal article and talked about the age of, especially, you know, baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
And how it's been just increasing, you know, tenfold, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as, you know, we're looking at high interest rates, inflation, things like that. So the market outlook for reverses, I think, is pretty good. I think it's going to be.
You're right.
Especially when rates start to come down a little bit, I think it's going to be a pretty valuable tool in the future for all of us that are aging up. I mean, you know,
well, here, I'll throw my little ring into the hat in the ring in this way. So if a lot of real estate has gone up in value, which definitely would help these reverse mortgage applicants, especially if their income hasn't really caught up with, let's say, inflation and all that. And so they may not be able to, especially with high interest rates, they may not be able to qualify for a loan with a bank, but yet they need money. And again, the baby boomers, we're all getting older. We're all hitting that. I'm a little bit towards the tail end of the baby boomers, but still, you know, I kind of look at that and go, yeah, I could see the outlook being pretty good.
Yeah, no, and you know, like you said, you know, if we're, you know, look at most of our income. I mean, most of our asset is our house, right?
Yeah.
And we can really, you know, when can we tap that, right? Usually we can't, right? Or if you take a cash, you have to pay for it. But as we get older and our income, you know, usually becomes less, it's just a great tool. You know, it really is. So.
Especially for those of us who don't want to leave anything to our kids. No, I'm just kidding. In fact, I'm going to live to 140 just to make sure that I take every potential ounce out of this house.
That's the other thing is that no matter how much, you know, if you were to, if your house was to lose all its value and be negative, you know, you're only responsible for the value of your house. So there's no recourse, you know, so.
No, that's really good. Oh, before we forget, Rich, how do people get a hold of you if they have more questions about reverse mortgages?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so best thing, so I've got, my office number is 707-985-2177.
Okay.
My cell phone, which I've always have, is 415-342-5891. And if you type in my name on Google, my LinkedIn will come up, and that has all my contact info as well.
Great. All right. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Rich Juarez of Longbridge Financial. So before we let Rich go, we want to find out what to look out for when shopping for a reverse mortgage. Give us some advice.
Righty. So when you're shopping, a couple things for, you can always research the company that you're working with. I think one thing that's important is you want them, if possible, to service and fund their own loans, which we do. And that's a big thing. A lot of these companies actually, reverse mortgage funding went bankrupt in the middle of servicing and funding loans, and people were like, had nowhere to turn.
Wow.
Matter of fact, yeah, we took over some of their servicing. And it's too bad. I mean, they're a good company, but these things happen. And if you service your own loans, you're going to have that bank with you for life. Make sure you get a proposal. Right? When you're looking at this proposal, look at origination fees, and they should not be 3 or 4 points on the loan, or $50,000 or $60,000. And when you see those, it's because people think that you're desperate. A lot of people think that, oh, you got a reverse mortgage, oh, you're in trouble, right? So I can take advantage of you. So just be wary of that. Excessive junk fees, huge margins that just seem out of place. Just when all else fails, check your gut. And if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And make sure when you do your counseling that they're HUD approved, that they are approved by Housing and Urban Development.
And what is that like doing the counseling? What does someone call you on the phone? And
great question. Yeah. So what you do, you have a list of, when we do a proposal, there's a list of 10 to 12 different counseling agencies. We can't recommend them by law. We can say, hey, some of our clients use these, but choose whoever you like. And it's usually about a 45-minute phone call. Okay. And they go over the ins and outs and make sure you understand it. They have access to the proposal that we've given you. So they go through the numbers and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
All right. Very good. Tell you what, give out your information one more time, and then we're going to cut for our thoughts for the day. I've got a few thoughts for the day here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me on my office phone at 707-985-2177. My cell phone, 415-342-5891. And again, if you just type in my name, Rich Juarez, at Google, it'll give you my LinkedIn and has all my contact info.
Excellent. Thanks again for being our guest. All right, here's our thoughts for the day. So childhood memories. When I was 7, I got in trouble on the playground at school for throwing a rock at a kid who first threw one at me. My mother said that instead of me throwing a rock back at the kid, I should have gotten the principal. And I said, well, what good would that have done? My aim is much better than his. And when I was a kid, when we played spin the bottle, if they didn't want to kiss you, they'd have to give you a quarter. By the time I was 12, I owned my own home. I thought you'd like that one. Yeah, we were talking about getting older here, right? All right. Sure. And actually, we do have one more minute here. So, let's talk just a quick minute about Pacific Private Money. So Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments yielding at least 7%. They have a fund that pays anywhere from 7 to 9%, depending upon how much you put in, with liquidity. You just have to give 30 days notice when you want your money back. You do have to be an accredited investor. Minimum investment on that fund is $250,000, but they do have another fund that the minimum investment is only $50,000. Still have to be an accredited investor, and that pays just a flat 8%, and also is liquid. So, and again, when I say liquid, you just give them 30 days notice when you want your money back. So check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. All right. Again, Rich Juarez from Longbridge Financial. Thank you for being my guest today. And audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.